Now that you've watched the video, what are your big rocks? What are your pebbles? What's your sand? What is your water? One final note to consider, this strategy doesn't eliminate any of the tasks or activities on your list or in your profession, but it helps organize them so that there's time and space that exists for all you wish to accomplish. The last video you're going to be watching for this part of the module is about iteration cycles and arrow moments. Take a look at this video and consider, what drives me to find my arrow moments? How can I incorporate more arrow moments into my year?
I want to focus your attention on just this cycle, these arrows right here on the left. Just like in good teaching, this first arrow is trying something new. Sometimes we want to try a new strategy. Maybe it's a new tech tool. Maybe it is something that we know, or our best guess is that it's going to be good for a particular student or a group of students or even a whole class. And so we try something new. The next step that we typically do, this next arrow, is we reflect on it. We reflect what went well, what didn't go well. Did that thing that we tried, did it work? Did it achieve the results that we were hoping for? And then that moves on to the third arrow, which is where we make adjustments, right? We look at what went well, what didn't go well, we make the necessary adjustments, and we try again. And we get going on this cycle, and this reflection cycle of teach or try something new, then reflect, then adjust, then try something new again. So we know that that's just good teaching. Being reflective, making adjustments, trying new things that work for your students as you figure out what works for what students in which circumstances. However, what can happen in this model is that you can reflect and adjust and try something new, and what you end up doing is just refining the type of instruction or innovation that you're doing. For example, if I do a lecture, I reflect, and I figure out what works and what doesn't for that lecture. I make adjustments. The next time, next class, I do a better lecture. And so by going through this process, I become really good at lectures. But I'm still just doing lectures. So as I think through this cycle and I'm just refining and improving those lectures, there has to be a moment, an outside influence, something that shifts our thinking towards the next cycle on the right, which moves us maybe from a lecture to using small groups, or maybe even a different blended model. What I would like us to focus on is what is happening during this arrow moment. For some of us, that is taking a class like this. For some of us, it's going to see a guest speaker. It's reading an article. It's following someone on Twitter and getting ideas from there. It's talking with a colleague. There are so many ways and things that allow us to reflect and adjust our thinking and actually get on a totally new track, a new cycle of trying something new, instead of just refining the same things that we've always done. Let's look at this another way. In this model, if we look at the top, in September, this teacher is on a reflection cycle, an iteration cycle, and then it takes a long time. They go all the way till January. So this arrow moment stretches out, and then in January they get on a new cycle. Again, they have another arrow moment, and by March they're on their third cycle. However, compare that to this teacher at the bottom that's on a reflection cycle, and the arrow moments are more frequent and they're shorter. So they move on to the next cycle and the next iteration of what they're doing and the next one. And by about March, they're on their 6th cycle instead of just the 3rd, like this teacher up here. So my goal for you would be to make these iteration cycles as short as you possibly can. Have as many of these arrow moments as you can that get onto those shorter iteration cycles so that you can continue to refine instruction, try new strategies, and become proficient with what works for which students in which circumstances. My challenge to you would be to find out, what are these arrow moments for you? Is it a blog? Is it a person on Twitter? Do you have a colleague or a teammate that works across the hall from you? Is there someone that you always get something from, a new idea? Is there a book that you've read or a class that you've taken? Whatever it is for you, figure that out. Figure out what works best for you and what helps you to think differently about your instruction and about your leadership, and try to continue to focus on those arrow moments and have as many of them and spend your time, invest your time in those moments as much as you possibly can.